The Navy is telling us that this is a competitive process. And I don't know what's worse, saying it's competitive when it's clearly not, or saying it's competitive and they don't understand that it's not. Thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video. I'm Subbrief. I was around when Gorbachev had his moment of doubt and pain. This is the Naval News, and today we're going to talk about Project Overlord. That was an experimental, unmanned surface vehicle program that is now complete. It had a 3-year run. The R&D cost was about $370 million. They produced a number of different vehicles, but 4 of the vehicles that they produced are actually being transferred to the United States Navy in what has been nicknamed the Ghost Fleet. Now, I was a little concerned about the term transferred because transferred and commissioning a ship are 2 very different things. And you can hide a lot of cost in a ship that's only transferred to the Navy rather than being commissioned. So we'll see if they actually do commission these 4 Ghost Fleet ships. Here's a picture of what they look like. They're part of a DEVRON squadron that was established all the way back in May 2019. And they've been working out different ways to properly employ this ship with the fleets at sea. And they've come up with a number of different ideas. The big one that seems to be catching traction, probably is going to end up being employed, is to have 16 to 32 VLS cells on the back payload of each one of these. So each commander, whether it's a battle group or a carrier commander, has additional assets in his fleet, more missiles basically, is what it looks like. Now, this all comes from the original design concept that was centered around the DDG-1000 idea. That's the Zumwalt class. That has been canceled. There's only 3 of these now. So we'll see how, or if this ever really does get employed as its original idea. It's probably just going to be modified. But it was the original idea to have a DDG-1000 surrounded by 4 to 6 of these unmanned vehicles with their missiles and weapons and sensor systems out on like picket ships at the outer edge, including the Sea Hunter. So they had some ASW capability in there as well. And that's where all this came from. So this was the beginning all the way up to where we are now. And this is just the Navy pushing boundaries of artificial intelligence, naval engineering, and capability. You know, the U.S. Navy isn't the only organization pushing technical development. Magic Spoon has developed a cereal for adults. I remember eating cereal as a kid on Saturday mornings at the breakfast table, and I would be reading the box, looking at the ingredients, maybe solving the puzzle on the back, while cartoons played in the background. I love that memory of my life. But as I grow older, I realize that I can't continue to eat those high sugar, high calorie cereals. But Magic Spoon has reinvented cereal. Magic Spoon cereals have 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, 4 to 5 net grams of carbs in each serving, and only 140 calories per serving. They're also keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free. Magic Spoon cereals come in 4 great flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. And I love the frosted one. Right now, this is my favorite. I'm really going through this box. And the way that I eat this crunchy snack is I replaced my potato chips and popcorn snacking that I'd been doing with this. I eat it dry right out of the bowl during game sessions in the evening, or if I'm watching a movie, a bowl of Magic Spoon cereal on the couch is a great snack. It's high quality, it's high protein, wholesome and simple, and fits my low-carb lifestyle. Now, Magic Spoon is cereal reinvented. I'm never going back to regular cereal. Go to my link in the description and use my code SUBBRIEF to get $5 off your delicious high-protein Magic Spoon cereal today. Let's take a quick look at the Congressional Research Services report on the Navy large unmanned surface and undersea vehicles. We're doing both surface and submerged vehicles in this report. So all the way back in 2020, this September 2020, they awarded contracts for an industry study on how to best procure and build these systems. And out of the 8 bids that they got, 6 of them were awarded, and I want you to look at these values. The awarding bid was Huntington Ingalls at $7 million, and then the 5 other bids down below it are all within $11,000 of that top bid. And that's no mistake. What that is somebody, I believe, my opinion is, somebody at Huntington Ingalls that knew their bid let slip, either on a golf course, over dinner, maybe in bed, to the other industry, consultants of what their bid was at $7 million. And then Lockheed Martin was like, you know what, let's knock $22 off that $7 million bid and put ours in. And sure enough, they were awarded that. Bollinger knocked off $168 of the $7 million bid and won the award as well. the Marinette Marine that builds the LCS, one of them, knocked off $217. And of course, they won a contract as well. And the Navy, as you can see that we've highlighted there, thinks or proclaims that this is a competitive process when clearly the process was compromised and everybody was bidding essentially the same amount of money. So the Navy had to award, at least a few of these. They ended up awarding all six out of the 8. This is not a competitive process. Now, as you can see, these programs are very expensive. This is Boeing's extra-large unmanned underwater vehicle that we're going to begin procuring one a year. And the budget for 2026 is $113 million to procure this one. 2027, we're going to get one more for $115 million. And this process continues. The plan right now is to get 5 of these. So this gives you an idea of how much these are going to cost us. Now, this thing does have some capability. If we're using the Echo Voyager as an example, it has a 6,500 nautical mile range, and it can have a modular payload, which would, I imagine, affect the range because smaller payloads would be more efficient to run, right? But it can carry up to 2,000 cubic feet of payload. That's a huge payload. That pushes this thing to be approximately 84 feet long with its maximum payload module in. And the testing on this began this year in March 2023. But the cost is really high. Now, why is this? Well, the Government Accountability Office put out a report, this is April of 2022, so this is going back a year from the time of this recording, that the Navy shipbuilding plan outlines more than $4 billion on uncrewed systems over the next 5 years. $4 billion, 5 years. And its plan does not account for the full cost of development and operating these systems. So the $4 billion is a starter number, is what we're saying here. The Navy's has not established a management approach to spending this money and being accountable for it. And the Navy has no plan in progress right now for measuring progress. This sounds a hell of a lot like the LCS procurement process and all the things that were wrong with it. Well, this was just some of those things. So this is a really lack of management after the Admiral and Big Navy has their idea of we want a distributed fleet with manned ships surrounded by unmanned ships, each having a wide variety of assets, including weapons and sensors, so that if we lose one of these, it doesn't cripple the fleet. Like in the Cold War, for example, if we lost one of our Ticonderoga-class cruisers from our battle group, that was a major blow because it had great sensors, communication, coordination, and of course, weapons, all in one ship. If we lost that was amazing. So we're getting away from that. And that's a great idea. Distributed fleet, awesome idea. But nobody's holding anyone accountable after the Admiral has his dream board meeting and shows him what he wants. Nobody's actually responsible or being held accountable for making it happen on the Navy side. So the awards go to contractors like Boeing in this example, but there are many others, and they only held themselves accountable for the progress of the Admiral's big dreams. So the Government Accountability Office continues with this, saying if the Navy continues on its current approach, it is less likely to achieve its objectives that the Admiral wants. In addition, the Navy has yet to create criteria to evaluate prototypes and demonstrate or develop improved schedules for prototype efforts. So if the Navy's not doing that, guess who is? Well, it's the contractors over there. They're doing it. The ones that we're paying all the millions of dollars for are setting their own goals. And so what they're able to do is dictate the pace at which these programs are pushed forward, the price at which they cost, and then the progress. And the pace is always slow, the price is always high, and the progress will always continue to be in progress until the money runs out. And that's exactly what happened with the LCS program. And it's happening with these unmanned systems now too. What's worse here is the Navy is telling us that this is a competitive process. And I don't know what's worse, saying it's competitive when it's clearly not, or saying it's competitive and they don't understand that it's not. Look at what was said at the Surface Navy Association's National Symposium. This was the program manager for the Unmanned Maritime Systems, got up before everybody and said, so what did we get for the Project Overlord program? Well, the first thing we gained were the 4 platforms that are going to the fleet. We're essentially getting those for free. The value of that is $370 million, he says. And the way we know it's $370 million is that because that's what we paid for it. So it wasn't free at all. But this is the mentality at the higher ranks. You know, they're paid to look at the big picture, and they do that well, but they overlook a lot of cost. $370 million is not free, but this is their thinking. For example, let's look at the extra large unmanned underwater vehicle. It is already or at least $242 million over budget. That's 64% of its original budget, and 3 years late on delivering the first one for testing with the United States Navy. And the contractor did not demonstrate its readiness to fabricate the XL UUV because it was not required to by the Navy. So whenever the Navy wanted 5 of these, Boeing said, well, now that we've got 1 to you, 3 years late and over budget, we're going to start building those other 5 or those other 4 for you. And this really falls on the Navy here. This is what I want to try and communicate to you is there's multiple different ways to get a ship built. One of them is to build a prototype, and the other one is called an acquisition contract, okay? And what the Navy really wanted was an acquisition contract, but they asked for a prototype. So that's on the Navy for doing that. So they went to the Boeing, said, build us a prototype and then build us 5 of these. And with the prototype contract, you don't need to prove that you can produce with an assembly building and staff and tools and materials more than 1 copy. So they took a prototype contract, made it an acquisition contract, and lo and behold, it didn't work. They got 1, which was the prototype. And why was it late? Well, the prototype did what prototypes are supposed to do. That's expose engineering problems that you don't see on the drawing board, but whenever you start assembling everything, you go, oh, wow, well, that doesn't work. And then you have to go back and re-engineer it, which is what happened to this program. Okay, so the prototype program worked. Okay. And that's why I was late and over budget. And for a prototype, that happens. You take a chance whenever you're trying new things, but they're holding it to the standard of an acquisitions program. And the Navy never did the due diligence to do the acquisition process. So that's 100% on the Navy. So let me just try and sum this up for you, because I know this is very complicated, and I hope I did a good job of communicating this. But this is going before Congress this year for appropriation action before the House Armed Services Committee, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and then final authorization for this money. It's $550 million for the 2024 budget. Okay. And this is for the both unmanned surface vehicles and the unmanned underwater vehicles. And I think Congress needs to hold the Navy accountable and get names for who wearing the U.S. Navy uniform is going to be evaluating these prototypes, and not leave it up to these contractors that are just milking the money for as long as they can get paid. Who's going to set the test schedule from the Navy's perspective? Why are we just letting these military contractors set their own schedule? Because they're going to push that out as far as they can to keep getting paid. And finally, who's going to set milestones for these prototypes and follow the process, really, between the prototype and the acquisition contract? If you want multiple copies, that's called acquisition, and the Navy knows that. Follow those, procedures, right? So, and then finally, who's going to maintain these unmanned vehicles in peacetime? Whenever they come to the U.S. Navy, how are they going to be employed? Well, we have the development squadron that knows how they're going to go to sea and operate with the fleet, right? But in peacetime, and honestly in wartime too, the fleet comes back eventually. The ships tie up to the pier. How are we going to maintain these UUVs? Can they just stay next to the pier and have crew members work on them and recharge them and change out parts? Or do they need to be craned out of the water, put on a trailer, trucked somewhere to an assembly building for maintenance? Where's that maintenance building going to be? Who's going to do that part? Now the contractors, these military contractors, do have that plan. It's them and they want money for it. But the Navy needs to see what we can do on our end as well. And the big oversight is no one is being assigned that position to make those decisions and be held accountable with the United States Navy uniform on. Okay, so they need to make that position available. And I don't envy the person that gets that role either, but we need someone with Rickover's style of, adherence to procedure and writing good procedures to correct this. All right. I want to know your ideas in the comments. What other things should Congress be demanding from the U.S. Navy during these hearings so that we have accountability from our perspective, from the U.S. Navy perspective, for these prototype acquisitions going forward? All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I know it's been a complicated topic. Thanks for watching this long. That really demonstrates the audience that we have here when you watch the whole thing. So we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hey, Gene. Yeah. Hey, did you see how much money Boeing's get over the next 5 years? Yeah. Buy all the stock. I want to own that company by the end of the day. I don't care. Buy all of it. They're getting millions of dollars for this. Yeah. I want to buy all of it. All. Thank you. All the stock. Thank you, Gene.